Ah, the smell of compost. Compost really doesn't smell the greatest sometimes, but it's very good for your garden. It has a lot of good organic matter in it. You should have a balance between your greens and your browns. Browns, you don't want about 2/3 browns, and your greens, you're gonna want about 1/3 green. Greens would be like grass clippings, weeds, kitchen scraps, and any spent crops. Browns would be wood prunes, so if you're gonna prune your trees or any flowers, you want to keep those. Leaves, any shredded paper or cardboard. One tip, if you are going to use weeds in your greens, make sure you get a 1 gallon or a 5 gallon bucket of water, fill it up, and throw your weeds in there. Let them sit for about, I don't know, 2 to 4 hours. The term for that is called drowning out the weeds. We want to make sure we kill those weeds before we put them back into our compost, or before we put them into our compost, that is.
Compost those eggshells. Compost that used coffee grounds. Even banana peels. What we also do in our house is just keep a bucket in there that we throw all of our kitchen scraps in. So it can be any vegetables that we cut up, any fruits, any peels, or any of that stuff. There are multiple different ways to create compost containers. In this example, you're using large bags. You can also just get some spare wood that you have laying around, or just make a container for the compost to sit in. The best option is to have a 3-tier system. One where the first bin would be your layers of greens and browns, and as that breaks down, you put it into the middle one, and as that breaks down, you put it into the last one. The last one is what you would use to put into your garden.
Making your compost bin does not have to be complicated. It can be as simple as getting a 5 gallon bucket. They make those 20 or 30 gallon buckets at the stores that you can get. As long as you have something you put your material in, it can make heat, and that you can turn it. That's all you really need. So these examples I showed are just some examples, but you can do anything to make your compost bin. One thing that is very important not to do when you're doing a compost is to mound it all together in one ball. You can't get airflow in there. The microorganisms can't get in there and start to break it down. So the best thing is when you put it in there, lay it flat. If you have mounds, you get like a pitchfork and turn it. So one of the most important things not to compost is, so meat or dairy, do not compost those. You're gonna get mice, you're gonna get rats, you're gonna get bad stuff into your compost. Lastly, one of the most important things with your compost is they need to breathe. So just like if you have a mound, you want to get a pitchfork in there and rip it up. Same thing with your compost. I'd say a couple times a year you want to get in there and turn your compost. That is, again, so the microorganisms in there can come to life, can get oxygen. Airflow is also very important. So it can help it breathe. The microorganisms can help decompose that stuff that you put in there to break it down.
If you don't have a way to make a compost bin, you can get vegetables and fruit peels. They decompose pretty quick, so just put them in the soil and turn them. These will be a great way to supplement your garden soil with organic matter. If you do have a compost bin or a area that you have your compost separated, go ahead and just put your browns on the bottom, and then put a small layer of greens on the top, and then put browns again on the top of it. It's a good way to layer your compost together. You don't have to be perfect about it. You're going to end up turning it anyway in a couple months.
If you decide to put cardboard in your compost, which is a very good idea, I strongly recommend that you follow these next steps.
Make sure your cardboard has been cleaned of all tape and foreign objects from it. Also, any stickers, get those off of there. You don't need those. And lastly, make sure you get all the metal off of it. Then we need to take the cardboard and rip it up into small individual pieces.
Cardboard in a compost would be considered a brown. So remember, we got 2/3 brown, 1/3 green.
One thing that I like to do is keep a bucket in my house, so I just throw all of our kitchen scraps in. And even in the wintertime, make sure you take your compost outside and feed it.
If you liked this video on how to compost, how to create a compost, and tips that I have provided on what works for me, please give us a thumbs up, share this, and remember to follow my page. And please remember, keep growing.